And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, for another Hack the Box Tampa meetup for the month of May. I am Sam, and we have Nevin here. Today I'm going to be going through SteamCloud. It's a easy box, uh, cloud-based again, kind of like the ones that I've been doing recently. This one's focused around Kubernetes mainly. Before we get started, do you have any announcements?
There is a business CTF that starts this weekend, so I don't know if registration's still open. Let me see if I can figure that out. Business CTF registration.
It's this one. Yeah, so it starts on the 18th. It's on Friday.
So it looks like, yeah, so it looks like you can still register. So if you have a company or you run a company and would like to play, I think you can have teams of up to 10
Up to
players?
30. It says up to
Up
30
to
on here.
30 players. So you could have a whole sock play. Um, which is kind of the OG move, but you never know. So if this is something of interest, feel free to look up or reach out to Samurai with any questions. It's your typical Jeopardy style CTF, and Hack the Box CTFs are one of a kind. Very fun to play in. Sam and I have played in several. Um, Highly recommend if you have the time and willingness to do so. And if you don't think my words are convincing enough, I think the prize pool is 50K.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot of
money
money.
does talk. Money does talk.
Yep, 50K. You are correct.
50K. Outside of that, nothing else on my end. We are looking for speakers, so we will probably send out a speaker form sometime soon, um, just to gather more interest within the community to see if anyone's available or anyone that's open to doing this. Um, but other than that, I will turn it over to you, Sam, to go over SteamCloud.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've got the box here. It is on the Meetup Lab this week. I know the last couple of months we didn't get the request in time, and we were having some issues with getting the box registered in the lab. So it is in the lab if you want to follow along. It's a retired box, so unless you have VIP, you're gonna have to um, just ping one of us. We can get you access to the lab. This should be, I don't know how long they leave it up usually. A good amount of time though. So, you're able to come in and do this. It should be up until the next meetup, I believe, is how long it stays active. So,
I think it's 48 hours.
oh, is it?
Yeah, I think they kill it
Okay.
after 48.
Oh, okay. I lied. Sorry. Don't listen to me. Anyways, yeah, so we've got the box here. This is like their new guided mode. I've seen this for some of the boxes, so it's kind of like the, what's it called? The starting point boxes, where that you have kind of questions that guide you along. So, we have our first question here. The other ones are hidden, so we'll kind of go along and do these. It looks like it just skips from user to root, so that's cool. But let's see what we got. So I already started. I kicked off a nmap scan just in the background before we started. So right here we have SSH. That's on going to be on every box. We can see it's a Debian box, which is good to know. 8443 is interesting. It says HTTPS alt, and we actually get a lot of info here from this cert. Um, the subject, the CN of Minikube. So right off the bat, I know this is Kubernetes. We'll kind of dive into this a little bit more and how we can we get a lot of information though. We get all the DNS resolutions for all the Minikube and Kubernetes names that are in use. So just based on this, we can infer that this is some kind of Minikube instance. And Minikube, if you're not familiar, we'll go into a little bit more, but it's essentially like for the other AWS boxes that I've done in the last couple of months, where those are hosted on OpenStack. Minikube is essentially or local stack. I mean, it's essentially local stack, but for Kubernetes. So it allows you to spin up and kind of do some Kubernetes development locally. And we have these. So it looks like it did try to request. We got a 403 forbidden on. Does it say where it tried to do that on? Oh, it tried to
The
get, yeah.
yeah.
Forbidden. Yeah, so we got some requests here. Cannot get path, root, reason forbidden. So we can kind of mess with this a little bit. Um, and this is just more status code response. So we also had some other ports open here. like it skipped over them maybe. Got 22, 8443. Yeah, I think it did just skip those ports. Okay. Interesting. Let's just do tac, so that'll scan all ports, because we know off the bat it's asking about 2379 and 2380. So let's just do a little Google. And we can see it is Kubernetes, so we didn't really even have to do the nmap scan. So let's put that in, see if that's right. Cool. So it's asking how many pods are running. So we know here um, these these ports I believe are the control plane, but let's kind of back it up and we'll talk a little bit more about Kubernetes before we kind of dive into the box itself. So, oh, flashbang, I'm so sorry. So, um, so Kubernetes is like it manages container deployments, right? So their website's actually really well documented. This is one of the pages that I referenced when I was first kind of learning about it. So essentially, the way it works is a cluster is made up of a few different parts. So you have these nodes, which are like specific worker machines that are running the application, and then each node has pods, and the pods are components of the workload. So you can have multiple pods that make up a node, and then you have the control plane, which manages all of these worker nodes. And here you have like your API, your etcd, all of these are essentially sending commands and receiving responses from these pods. And these this control plane is usually this is going to run across multiple computers, and the cluster itself as a whole, you have your entire cluster here, is running multiple nodes. So you can see we have three different nodes here. So these may be like three different applications and the different parts that make up the applications, right? So just kind of high level, that's what we've got. Um, I'm not going to go too much into all of the different components in the control plane because there's a lot of them. Um, but we know here, right, these ports is managing the API server. So we want to know how many, the question was how many pods are running. Let's actually go and just try to go to this site and get the error that we got before. It's 8443. And we don't have the cert, that's fine. Yeah, so we get this 404 or 403. And this is kind of what it was telling us, right? The system anonymous cannot get the root path. So we want to try to interact with this with the API, and doing it from the browser, we're unauthenticated. So we need to learn how to interact with this. This kind of goes back to the documentation. I think it was in a different tab here. And then this is Minikube, which is what I was talking about earlier. This is kind of like your local stack. So it lets you just spin up a local Kubernetes cluster. Um, and here's some different, you know, this is the documentation for Minikube specifically. Um, kubectl is what we're going to be using at first to just try to access the cluster control plane. And this is going to let us, run commands, get information, so we can see like, here's what we want, right? We want to get the pods. We want to see how many pods there are. So let's give this a try. So we need to install this first. Does it have the install here? Get started, probably. Okay, cool. Let's give this a try. Okay, yeah. And then we did have these other ports that came up. So the main one was 8443, kind of giving us that giveaway for the Minikube, which kind of led us down our rabbit hole. But the question itself was asking about these two ports, which are running the etcd API. So let's just do this, and let's grab this one. So, uh, cool. So, oh, this is for the actual Minikube, not the kubectl. Is there kubectl? Here we go.
So there's also multiple ways to do this. You can do it through Bash and curl, like Sam's doing. You can do it through a package manager, or if you like Docker, like I do, you can just import a Docker container and then set aliases and run it that way as well. Whatever floats your boat.
Cool, so this looks like we've got it. Let's pull up our docs from before. So we wanted to, let's do basic controls, no, kubectl. Okay, so we want to do get pods, but we need to specify the server. So let's just read, let's pull up this documentation here. Command type, name flags, that seems easy enough. How do we specify what server we want? Okay, the attack S. Address and port. Sounds good to me. So attack S. .8443. And we just do get. Let's try get pod. Oh, okay. Sure. I guess we didn't install it. So we want to know, or some other things we can check. Also, Hacktrix has some really great stuff. Their Hacktrix Cloud has some really great documentation on Kubernetes. So once again, these ports, you can see the Kube API server, Minikube API port here. This is the one we were looking at before, and some of these other ones. So let's see, we can try. This is just mentioning curling it. Let's just see what we got. Let's give this a try. Enter username. Let's just try to not enter a username. It's probably not going to like that based on what we had before. Okay, definitely didn't like that. I wonder if it wants the IP address. That would be very cringe. Let's just try admin admin. Certificate signed by unknown authority. That doesn't sound right. Hmm. Okay, let's just do tactec server. Bad request. Maybe it does need the HTTPS. Okay. Unable to connect. Let's just Google this error. I'm sure there's some kind of override flag we can use. Look at that. Let's see if this works. Yep. This server doesn't have a resource type pod. Can we do get namespaces? Doesn't have a resource type namespaces. What about cluster info? I don't know if it's actually taking admin. Doesn't have a resource type services. Huh. Interesting.
What's the command you're running?
I was trying to just have it list pods.
Try instead of server, do tac s and just give it so kubectl pods tac s in the IP. The server is the same thing as tac s, I'm pretty sure, for the
Yeah,
IP.
I started with TACS and then switched to that.
Just do the IP, don't do HTTPS.
Let's do get rid of the
And
HTTPS.
you can get rid of the port too. So just focusing on IP should default 8443.
Let's see. This is to
And
our
don't
cluster info.
I don't think you have to authenticate too.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
so
I did a
um,
slash.
it's a syntax. It's no, it's a syntax. So do whatever you're trying to do before the S.
Whatever I'm
Because it
trying to
wants
do. Oh.
yeah, so it wants the command before you do the flag.
Oh god, what was that flag? Insecure skip TLS verify. Sure.
You try cluster info before tech S. It's the same thing with like crack map that drove me absolutely crazy. No,
So
no,
it's weird.
swap, get rid of insecure skip TLS verify and swap it with cluster info. That's what I'm trying to get. Is like get the cluster info command before the
Yeah, but
flag.
in here it's saying command and then oh.
See what I mean? It's command first and flags. That's
That's
yeah.
so
It's the same thing with
cool.
like the rest of it. You gotta love when things just don't work.
Let's try get
See.
pods. Okay, now let's try
Now try
8443.
8443.
Okay, we're getting somewhere. Server rejected our request for an unknown reason.
Get rid of the insecure skip TLS verify
Yeah,
and just try it there.
that was a temporary workaround.
Get rid of 8443 and just try.
I'm pretty sure it needs HTTPS. Yeah. Let's try admin again.
Try it again and do just enter and see if you can anonymous it.
Yeah, it doesn't let you. It just like hangs. Oh.
Beautiful.
Regardless, I'm pretty sure we don't have perms to do this because when we try to go to it in browser, we're still technically anonymous, and I know those creds are not correct. So what we can do instead is look at, if we go back to where's our good documentation here? Components. So instead of just trying to interact with the control plane, because that's what we're doing right now, and evidently we don't have access to do this, there's something, or maybe I'm just not a good hacker, I don't know. what we can try to do is just interact with like one of these nodes, right? So we had the agent, the IP actually came back. Let me rerun my nmap. I should have just saved it. But one of those ports in there, this port was the etcd API, so in this control plane as well. But we should have some higher numbered ports, and those we can actually, those are actually the node, the kubelet agents. So we can use, there's a kubectl equivalent for the kubelet agent. It's gonna be these ports, these higher numbered. And so let's just take a look here. Let's just try to go to one of these. What was it? 10 to 49. We had 3 ports. Okay, so this one failed. Let's try 250. Okay, this is a page. 4 of 4 not found. But that's not telling us that we can't access it. So let's try to do our kubelet CTL. Oh, it's gonna. Oh, did I type it wrong? Kubelet CTL. No, that should be right. Cube CTL. I want kubelet CTL though. Kubelet CTL install. Let's do that. Alright. No. There. Why? Do I have to be root? Seems like. Okay.
When in doubt, sudo it out.
Alright. Okay, cool.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is going to work the same way. And this is actually just going to interface with that port we found. We can try 51 too, but it looks like that's, yeah, so that's not actually the kubelet API port. And we can look this up too. Should have, yeah. So this is our kubelet API. So if we, you know, I mean, we kind of just guessed, but this is going to let us interface with this. So we can look at, thought there was a good documentation here, but maybe not. Same cluster. No, maybe not. Alright, let's just give this a try though. We have, let's just list the pods. Let's do server. Let's see if that works. Cool, okay. So we've got 8 pods. All of these are under cube system namespace. You can see the containers that are under them. And we have one that's under default, which is interesting. Nginx container. We can also do like running pods. I think it's like, it's either running, it's running dash. No, yeah, I did totally mean that. Cool. And we can do some JQ stuff. I don't think, yeah, this is a new box, so I don't have JQ installed. And just built this image like 20 minutes before we started. So let's redo this, and we can pipe it into JQ. We want dot items. It's under, I think, metadata. And then we want from that, we want the name of the pod and the namespace that it's in. So all this is doing is we're checking the metadata of the items field, and then from there we're pulling out and listing the name of the pod and the namespace. And it's going to be very pretty, and we can see these are all of our running pods. So we already identified this, but all of these ones that are running also are under this cube system namespace, except for the Nginx pod, which is just running under default. And what's really cool about having access to this, because we didn't have access to the control plane, which makes sense, it's usually locked down if people are smart, but being able to access the kubelet API unauthenticated, we can run commands. So we can do kubelet SteamCloud, can't type tonight, and we can just do who am I, and we have to specify the pod, so we're going to try the Nginx one, because all of these cube system pods, these are, management, so we didn't have access to these. So let's try Nginx, and it's running as root. That's pretty neat. So, I mean, we can try this for one of the other ones, just so we can kind of experiment and say we tried it. Let's do what's the shortest named one? Let's just try that CD one. Yeah. Pod does not exist. Well, that's not true. I know that's not true because I'm looking at it. That may just be it blocking the connection, to be honest. Let's do storage. Yeah, I think that's just how it tells us that that's not an option. But we can go back here. So we did have this, and it told us it was root, which is really nice of it. And what's even cooler about this, instead of doing like um, a fancy reverse shell, we can just tell it to bin bash, and it'll just give us a shell. Very cool. Look at that, how lovely. We don't have to do any fancy work on that. So now we have root on this box. We probably should be answering these questions as we go along. How many pods are running? That's a good question. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Yeah, go away. 8. Cool. Which pod in the default namespace allows code execution? Well, we know it's Nginx. Not that one. Yeah, so I guess if it doesn't allow, that's what this is alluding to. It's not allowing code execution, which is why it's saying it's not running. That's just, I guess, the response it gives. I'm honestly not too sure, so don't quote me on that. But then in which directory is the service account token? Okay, so that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, and I don't want to cheat. So now we're able to access that. That's really great. We probably don't need that again. We don't need to install more tools. So I guess we can go to this question and kind of get a head start. So it's asking about the service account access token and certificate inside a Kubernetes pod. And this, if we didn't know that, if we didn't have this question, Hactrix actually has this. So it references somewhere in here. Service account object. It's under here. I think it's under, I can also just search it. It's called service. Okay, there we go. This is all GCP Kubernetes version. Here we go. So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but when you create a pod, right, it'll have a service account that's in that namespace, and then this kind of does like the identity for all of the processes. So the processes are going to run under that service account, and it's going to be present. This service account token is going to be in one of these directories it's saying. And this directory, this service account directory, is going to have these three files. So it's going to have the cert, right, for the Kubernetes communications as they're communicating between the namespaces and pods. And then the namespace, right, we already know the namespace, and then token, which is a service token. So this is really what we want, and gives us the identity access. So if we get these, we're going to be able to authenticate to the cluster itself, which is really awesome. So we can just try these. Let's check this. Okay, it looks like it's in the first one. Did we get that lucky? Nice. Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. So it was in the first one. So that's the answer to our question. It's thinking. No, no, it doesn't like that. Oh, maybe it's just referencing this. No, maybe it's
Yeah, it might not be the absolute path too. Just try the service account.
path starting with slash.
Path starting with that, or you can try slash service account or run secrets.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is that it just wants to run secrets. No, it really thought about this one for a while. No. Oh, it's because it's a slash. No.
Run pwd in your thing and see where you
Yeah.
are.
See if I get a
You might want
different.
absolute.
Looks like.
Okay, it just run secrets. Try slash run. Play the guessing game.
Yeah, I guess I can just do slash run. Let's just see a hint. Yes. If I try this one.
Try slash secrets.
I kind of think it just wants a different one. No.
Try slash secret.
Yeah, I tried slash secrets after this. Let's see if this one works. Oh, see. No. Let's just try slash secrets. No. In which directory? Oh, unless it wants to. Wait, hang on. I'm gonna
That's what I
lie.
was saying. That's what I was trying to get.
It wants a slash.
Nah,
Huh?
no.
In which directory is the service account access token and certificate stored? Yeah.
It's how to Kubernetes pod.
I mean, I can promise you it's in this directory.
Wait. Service account token and certificate. Go back to the Kubernetes enumeration thing you had, or the yeah. What about the 4 lines down? The service account token is being signed by the key resulting in the SA key and validated by SA pub, garlib, etc Kubernetes. Is that what it's asking for? Is the token insert? You have the key and pub.
What's where? It's asking
No, but
where
it
the
should be
token is
yeah.
stored. Yeah.
It's a .crt file.
Let's just make sure this is like actually. Yeah, I mean, this,
It's the
I don't know
cert.
how it's
It's the
telling me
cert.
this is not. I don't know how it's telling me this is not the path that it's being stored in.
What's the path starting with
Path
slash?
starting with slash, such as slash home.
What about slash run? What's the slash run? It's thinking.
I'm pretty sure I tried slash run and it told me no.
I think you did.
I can also just. Can I Google this? Is this like Googleable?
Let's see.
This is really dumb.
Oh, it was var run. That's what it is,
Oh
Tim.
my God, are you? Oh, because it's running out of VAR.
Yeah, it's running out of.
Oh my God. So it wants VAR. No,
No.
no. VAR run secrets.
Copy paste that. Exactly. What?
All
With
right,
your
it's extremely
face?
good. I don't like that question because it like I know because I've done the box that I know that this this pod is mapped to slash var, but it
Yeah.
could be mapped to anything. So like I don't know. I don't really like that. I think it should have just been anything. I think understanding this is really like
It's mainly like where to find it, and because again, as you said, it could be mapped to
yeah. I
var
don't think
run, but
it's
wherever Kubernetes is running out of. Like default, it should be var, but someone could be advantageous and try and map it somewhere else.
getting a little ahead of ourselves. I don't think it's like I don't think these are meant to challenge. I think these are meant to kind of like guide you along. So I don't know. I don't like that because we knew the answer to it and it wasn't giving it to us. Anyways, creating which volume type could be used to mount a host. Yeah, so this is kind of ahead of ourselves. So we have the files, and if we go back, so we have our cert, which is what's used for the communications namespace. This is going to be huh? It should just be the oh yeah, it says default. I can't read. So we already knew that. And then the other thing we want is our token, so we can actually auth to the cluster by doing that. So let's just grab this. I can add a new tab. Let's make this a bit bigger. Let's do this. Namespace. And then we also need to do token. This is really what we came for. Oops. So now with these, we should be able to auth going back to what we were trying to do before. So let's try kubectl again. Let's do server. See if this will work this time. That's SteamCloud.hackbox 8443. Certif. CA cert. Now we need our token to equal token. Let's try get pod. Not SteamCloud. Okay, so yeah, so it doesn't like the that I resolved the host name, which makes sense. So I added it to my host file just to make it easier to navigate to. But in this case, the cert is signed for the IP, not for or for all of these. It's self-signed for these internal names, not our one that we wrote. So we can just do the. You must be logged into the cert. I am trying to authenticate. Uh, should work. I must be logged in unauthorized. Server is this. What about namespaces? No. What about cluster info? Okay, so there's another really cool thing we can do here, and it's called, let's go back to the beginning here. It's called can I? Just like auth, I think it's just can I? And basically this is like, hey, what can I do? Can I list? Let's see this. No. Auth can I list.
I think it's flagging the token. You might have to export the token.
Yeah, I might have to export it as a variable. That's probably it. Because I don't like, um, let's do our, let's go back and grab our token again. That's probably it. Let's do $sign token. Yeah, there we go. So let's go back a couple commands and see. Okay. Yeah, so this is kind of like the same error we were getting before, right? Where we were saying it didn't have the resource type, these errors, and these are just because we don't have the permissions. So this auth can I will tell us what we actually can do for each resource. Um, so for all of these APIs, we can get, but we can, for pods, we'll see we can get, create, end list, which is really neat. So essentially, and Nevin kind of alluded to this, what we can do is create a pod, the way the question was worded, and we kind of referenced where it's mapped to, we can just map this to the root directory, or like the root file system of the host. So because we have permissions to create a pod, and that's kind of what this last question is alluding to here. What volume type can be used to mount a file or directory from the host file system onto the pod? So let's do. We need to get some details from this pod just so we know how to create it in the first place. So cube ctl get pod nginx. We want it in YAML. Stack s, whatever that IP is. 8443, and we can just copy this again. Cool. Yeah, so this is our full configuration. We don't need this full thing, but we're gonna need some parts of it. So let's at least split this in half here, and let's create a new. Oh, it's so janky. Okay, and we can vim. So the first thing we need, we're always going to have this API version pod, metadata. We don't need all of this. Let's start with at least this. Version kind pod, and then we want it to be API version respects. namespace. So we needed this namespace. Let's just do name root pod, and we'll do namespace is also default. Spec. So we need this image. So let's do our specify that this is going to be for the name, or the pod named root pod, and under this we want it to be image, whatever this version of Nginx is. Cool. Let's do volume mounts. So can do I think it has to be under image, right? The formatting for this is so finicky. So if we go back here, which volume type? So let's keep going with our mounts at least before we get there. So we want our mount path. Let's just do it in slash mount. And we'll do name host file system, and then under volumes, we'll do tag name, and here's where we're going to specify. So this is the question it's asking. How do we choose to, mount it from the host file system? So we can actually just Google this too if we don't know. Spoiler, it's host path. So let's try that. So at least put that in here before we, cool. So if we go back here, we'll do host path, and we want that to be path, and we'll just put it on the slash there, and we will go down here. The last thing is this. So you can see right here, this is mount path. What else do we need? We need the service account token. So we have to specify. This path. Yeah, we can just try this. We kind of want it to, it should be in here somewhere. I'm looking for a specific field, but I don't see it.
You have the YAML on the left saved as a file.
No.
Just if you could
This is
always
the
copy paste it.
this is the one I'm making. I don't want this. There's so much garbage in here.
Yeah, I know. If I said if you want to make it easier on you,
Oh,
you could.
yeah, I see what
I
you're saying.
know. I think I know what you're looking. You could copy paste and prep it, but
Yeah,
let me see.
it should be under here. It should be, I'm looking for like there's a service account. We want it to, because it's, otherwise we specify the service account. So there's a field called auto mount. I think it's token true, yeah. and then we want it to be host network. I think all of this may not be in here.
Yeah, it's on the Kubernetes docs, so if you
Yeah,
don't want it to mount a service account's API credentials, you can just have it automate the service account token being set to true.
yeah. So let's just try this. And we can do our, let's try to spin up our, so let's just look at it one more time. This is a lot smaller, a lot cleaner, but essentially what we're doing, we're mounting the root file system. So let's try kubectl. I can't read. Root yaml. What's our IP address? I should have saved that as a variable, honestly. 8443. Token. Let's try doing that. Oh, it didn't like that. Why did it not like that? Maybe we just run it over here.
Yeah, I don't think you
Oh,
had your
you know why? Because
token.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't in the other
It's
session
yeah.
or the
Okay.
other.
Pod root pod created. There we go. Yeah, it didn't have that session variable in there. So then we can just do kubectl pods. Whatever that IP is.
It's I think it's pod instead of pods, singular.
A pod.
Let me sanity check myself.
That's not what we wanted to do either. Here we go. Tech s. No. Oh, kubelet. That's right. Because we can't interface.
Uh,
There we go. And if we scroll up, we see our root pod running there. Look at that. Let's rerun that, make it look pretty. Yay! All right, cool. So now we can go back. There's a lot of like repetition, but we can essentially just do the same thing that we did before. Exec. All right, because we can interface with the pods in default. So we just made one. Where's our IP address? There. Let's try root pod, and it's cool. So we can just rerun this and do open and bash. And now we're root on SteamCloud. Slash home, or just slash root, I guess. No? Why is the flag not
your base mounts MNT.
here?
Is that
Oh
not?
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
No.
so when you mount it, right? That's a good call. It's been a long day. So when you mount it, I'm not gonna draw a diagram, but we're mounting it in. We set our file path to mount, right? So everything that we do. Where the heck did my thing go? Oh, here we go. So we have to actually cd into mount because that's where we mounted the file system. And now we can see once again we have the full thing. So we cd into root, and we have our root txt. We can also go let's go back here. Uh, so here's our user flag and here's our root flag. So essentially what we did was we just mounted it. I forgot. Yeah, it doesn't actually just like give you the root file system, right? It puts it in. If we go back to our config, I'll pull it up and explain why. It's a little complicated when you first kind of do it, but once you kind of understand what it's actually doing, it makes a lot more sense. So let's
Good old,
exit out of this.
good old Linux where everything's a file.
Yeah. So because we specified that the mount path uh, or the volume mount is going to be mounted to slash mount under the name hostfs, and then that volume specifically, we're going to use the host path of the root directory. So it's going to mount everything under the root directory to slash mount, and that's why we're able to go into slash mount slash root and grab our flags and stuff. So that's it for the box. It's a pretty easy one. I know it took a little bit longer. I kind of wanted to go in depth a little bit more on um, some of the different quirks with it, and kind of spend the time doing the troubleshooting instead of just like walking through and blasting through it in like 10 minutes, because it's not that complex. But uh, definitely, give it a try. Hacktrix Cloud has a lot of really cool stuff. You can, spin up your own Minikube instances. Uh, mess with, write some of your own configs. See if you can pen test them. It's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Sam.
Yeah, anytime.
Kubernetes is sort of the wild, wild west. It's getting more and more popular, that and Rancher, but there's a lot of more, I'm going to phrase it as research to be done to figure out how. I don't even know if it's research. It's just there's not a lot of things documented towards like exploitation of Kubernetes or Rancher.
Yeah,
It's harder to find this stuff on the internet to sort of understand. You can read the documents and go from there, but there's not really, compared to like typical network and internal testing, it's not at the tip of the iceberg for knowledge.
yeah,
More of a niche.
yeah. It's definitely
But
pretty niche.
it's an awesome walkthrough. It's also a very cool box. Highly recommend if you want to sort of learn how Kubernetes works and how you can sort of abuse logic in a lot of ways to get root on a system. Um, but yeah, thanks again, Sam.
Yeah, anytime.
Um, I think we'll just call it there and wrap it up from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope everyone has a good one. We will see you next month.